Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another one of my Outlander videos and my review of episode 6 of season 3. Now a quick and brief disclaimer here, yet a very important one. Read the books here, however evaluating the TV series from two perspectives. The fact that it is based on the books and the fact that it's actually a TV production. So please keep this in mind before you ever decide to rage in the comments or rub in your mad Outlander reading skills, like they automatically make your opinion the only one that matters. Mine is just an opinion. You don't have to agree with it or like it. You could argue it and try to change mine, and it could possibly change. But anyway, how have you all been? I can imagine a lot of you have been suffering over the lack of an episode of Outlander last Sunday. I mean, on my end, it's not like it's my favorite show of all time, and yet I hated spending last Sunday without an episode. And speaking of new episodes, the 6th episode was off to a very good start. And this is probably gonna come as a surprise to you, but I'm not even talking about the events of the episode. I'm actually talking about the recap at the very beginning. It's like we know Claire left Jamie right before battle back in Scotland, and we know she begged him to go through the stones with her. And that scene was not even used on the previous episodes this season, not all of them at least. Yet, I've gotta give the showrunners a big thumbs up here, because they knew how to get us into the mood. They remind us of the separation, the heartbreaking moment that it was, so we would all be like, more invested than ever in their reunion. Now that recap as well gave us two heartbreaking moments on both sides. Jamie's separation from William and Claire's separation from Bree, and they kinda showed them one after the other. In a manner of speaking, they're trying to tell us the sacrifice is kind of equal on both sides over all these years. You see, I did tell you that for me a very important part of evaluating and reviewing this is about the fact it is a TV series, regardless of whatever it is based on. Now the episode is titled after Jamie, A. Malcolm, which is basically the name he's taken to avoid using the name of Jamie Fraser. So one of the things I did like about this episode is it didn't pick up right where the previous episode left off. Now that would have actually been a bummer if you ask me. As a matter of fact, the way they started it built up towards the anticipation of what happened post him fainting at the end of the previous episode. And I have got to say here, the entire environment, the buildings, the streets, the carriages, the whole 9 yards pretty much, they form such a beautiful image. Now as you all probably remember from my previous reviews, I'm in it for that feel of history and a different time and age as well. But let's talk core events of the episode. The entire initial sequence in the print shop goes to establish a life for Jamie, that he's been doing this for a while. He's basically built a life for himself. He has a job in a business of his own, and he has friends and co-workers. It also went to show that he's kind of moved on. Not in the emotional way, of course, cause the emotions are still there, but more in a practical and pragmatic way. However though, and once again, this is all just part of this amazing build-up towards the reunion we got a glimpse at on the final scene of episode 5. But let's get down to business and talk reunion. Now for starters, I did love how they showed us the few seconds that preceded the reunion from Jamie's perspective this time around. Now some people complained about how I didn't pay much attention to Jamie's reaction on my review of episode 5. And I definitely apologize here, but my reviews are not that biased, so just because I like the performance of an actor doesn't mean when he does nothing on a scene or close to nothing, I'm gonna go like, oh my god, he did such a great job. The heart of the matter is, all we got from him on episode 5 was turning around, a longing look, followed by him falling to the floor. On the other hand, we got to watch Claire's full emotional expressions back then. On this episode though, it was the other way around, like we got to see Jamie in action. And that was pretty much what I needed on my end to be able to rave about his acting and expressions, which were amazing by the way. But besides that, another thumbs up goes out here for the great writing for these scenes. The way this scene was presented to us from two perspectives is, in my personal opinion, amazing television storytelling. But it does as well go to explain why we didn't get the final scene from episode 5 as part of the recap at the beginning of this episode. And I just think this was the right thing to do. I mean, they left us with one hell of an amazing moment at the end of episode 5, and then had us wait for 2 weeks. And with episode 6, they presented us with this very same moment once again as part of this episode's story, but only from another perspective. That just made for very good continuity of events. Also, I don't think she needed to say anything after "it's not Geordie." The man didn't seem in need of any of that, he just recognized her voice right away. Now if you're not finding me for the first time here, you probably remember me saying early on this season that there will be these looks of longing and belonging the moment they meet again. And there it was, and it was pretty good and pretty well acted on both ends, and then he fainted. Now that scene did lack on the touch from the books, which I actually think was a good move not to include. In the novel, there's this touch between them before he actually faints. However though, in my opinion, that not happening goes to say a lot more. It goes to say that seeing her was just enough. But there's also this moment of disbelief that followed. "You're real," he tells her, and she responds, "So are you." Every single word being said on that scene is perfectly written and very well acted. There was this talk about her being in his dreams, how she came to him when he had a fever, his fears, and how the most painful thing about all of this is they never touched. And like I just said, it was just pure amazing writing and acting all over the place. I'm not going to go into the details of every word though, because this is going to end up taking me more than the 80 minutes the episode ran for, but suffice to say, it was all touching. Now there was this moment where he gets to tell her, "It's very fine to see you again, Claire." I guess that one did sound pretty distant, and you can even tell from her reaction, and it is kind of understandable given his current situation. But that was however followed by him remembering there was a child growing inside of her when she left through the stones last he saw her. And this of course brought on his excitement to find out he has a daughter. Now he definitely cracked me up with the whole "what the devil" when she handed him the photographs of Bree, and she cracked me up having to explain what a camera is. He once again got me laughing with how he felt the need to explain he's now old and has to put on glasses to be able to read. Loved how he felt that was an embarrassment, and how the reading part was his way of reducing said embarrassment. As a matter of fact, the funny moments do not stop throughout the entire sequence and the entire episode. But worth noting here that the portrayal of this entire old man thing is really well done. It is just so good watching the acting for Jamie's part there. It even gets more enhanced when he starts asking about Brianna's name and what her first words were, which were apparently dog followed by no. But it's also worth mentioning that telling Claire about Willie was yet one more touching and very beautiful moment. The man still feels the same pain he felt years ago when he had to ride away from his son, leaving him with Gray and his wife. And right in the middle of that conversation, I did like the fact he stated he felt guilty for Geneva's death, if not for anything, then for not loving her back the way she did love him. But there's also his description of young William, which pretty much gives us an insight on the man we're gonna see he grew into further on down the road. Now every bit of the way it felt pretty clear Jamie's trying to find a way to tell Claire about Leary and his marriage to her. It even felt like his question about Frank was about finding his way out of this terrible situation he's in. Like, you've got Frank, I've got Leary. But anyway, after this one long amazing run-on scene, we get to see Claire's reunion with Fergus, and that as well was pretty intense. But circling back to Leary, she's not really the only complication in Jamie's life. And while Claire is partially clueless to what makes his life so complicated, she does realize it firsthand and from the very first moment. But she does get to find out about the details of his little smuggling operation later on down the road in the events of this episode. Now one other thing I kind of loved about episode 6 is it kind of picked up their first adventure right away. I mean, romance is good, but this show is not about romance in the usual movie and TV kind of way. And hence why I was disliking some of the rushing on 2 of the 6 episodes this season so far. But one other thing I loved about this episode is how it quickly defined new characters, identifying both friends of Jamie's and antagonists he will have to face off with. Now speaking of the madam of the brothel, she clearly has deep feelings for Jamie and clearly hates Claire's guts from the very moment she lays eyes on her. Now I don't remember if those feelings were a factor in the novel, so do remind me in the comments if that was actually the case. But that two-person scene with him and her in his room in the brothel though, the conversation they had together, the way he sounded distant, now that was fueled at first by his fear she would not like the man he had become. And I suppose there is still the whole situation with Leary that at this very point Claire is yet to find out about. I'm very glad though that they didn't jump into bed right away, but rather kept talking and sharing. Even though the moment it turned into narration by Claire, I knew right away the show wanted to skip straight to business. And feel free here to start hating the hell out of me in the comments, but I would have preferred the conversations The acting throughout those was just flat out amazing since the episode started. But wow, did Claire just want to give Jamie a brain aneurysm there, introducing him to the camera, and then the zipper, all in one day. Now there were so many callbacks throughout this scene. Among them was one to their wedding night on season 1, another one was to the whole ordeal with his eyeglasses earlier in the events of this episode, but there were just a lot more that I won't be getting into in order not to prolong this video. But there was also Claire introducing herself to young Ian and realizing he's Ian Murray's child, Jenny's kid. The entire scene that followed with her and all the women at the brothel was just hilarious, with the assumption they made about her and all the tips they gave her. Claire, however, and by the end of the episode, manages, and as usual, to find her way into a terrible situation. I mean, I understand it's part of the story and advancing it and all that good stuff, but why the hell would you tell this man, who doesn't look like he means well, and who also looks like an enemy of Jamie's, that you're actually Jamie's wife? I understand that the comments on this part are gonna be like, you don't understand shit, she is just courageous. But this is not courage. This is stupidity. But hey, just like I mentioned, trouble and the scent of adventure are already knocking at the doors, so it is only gonna keep getting better from here. Well, that is all I have for this episode. I seriously cannot believe I've been recording here for a little bit over 25 minutes, so I'm probably gonna be trimming this and cutting out a whole lot in order to make it reasonably shorter. That way I wouldn't bore you with my terrible voice and rambling. So if some parts of this video sound a bit iffy while you're watching it, please do understand. But let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode, what your favorite moments were, and how you felt about every bit of it. Do let me know as well if you liked this review by slapping this video a much appreciated like. And remember, you could always subscribe as well and enable notifications for my future videos. And until I see you next time, thank you all for watching and have a good one.